If I were to write a list of all the things that made Skyrim special, it'd be as long as the Elder Scrolls themselves. Considering that's a massive waste of parchment, I can boil Skyrim's magic down to one word: dragons. Few games have recaptured the thrill of Tamriel's worms crashing down from the sky to interrupt an otherwise run-of-the-mill fetch quest. But I've got good news. That very same sense of awe, terror and excitement fuels Dragons Dogma 2, a game where a towering cyclops can unexpectedly emerge from the forest's edge, or a terrifying drake swoop down from on high, all in unscripted, emergent moments. If you're familiar with the original Dragons Dogma, then you'll likely know that the game's director, Hideaki Itsuno, was partially inspired by the Elder Scrolls series. That inspiration makes the first game, and in turn Dragons Dogma 2, stand out not only against the traditions of Japanese-developed RPGs, but also much of the Western RPG scene too. Dragons Dogma 2 rejects many of the genre's narrative-heavy staples in favour of a more organic, exploration-focused structure. It's a philosophy that powers Bethesda Game Studios' trademark approach, and so within Dragons Dogma 2, there are recognisable echoes of Skyrim. Our memories of Morrowind, Oblivion and Skyrim are more often than not related to our lived experiences within the world, rather than specific characters or narrative beats. This makes the Elder Scrolls something unusual among RPGs, a genre typically reliant on novel-like stories. It's likely a result of the series having roots in Ultima Underworld, the key progenitor of games like System Shock and Deus Ex. These games are built on interlocking systems and mechanics that combine to create worlds that feel organic and authentic. Everything has its purpose and interacts with the things around it. While story is a foundational pillar in these games, it's delivered without the cinematic lens used in more traditional RPGs. They're not Baldur's Gate, Mass Effect or Dragon Quest. These are games about doing and experiencing, rather than being part of a beautifully written tale.
At last, we may celebrate the coming of our rightful ruler.
That brings us back to Skyrim's dragons, and in turn Dragons Dogma 2's array of colossal beasts. They turn up without warning, injecting unexpected challenges into, well, anything. You could be having a mundane stroll back to the city to hand in a quest, or be in the middle of an already heated battle. Just yesterday, I was on an errand to collect gold ore, only for my mining expedition to be interrupted by a ferocious griffin. A great battle ensued, with my party calling down bolts of lightning and shooting flaming arrows in an attempt to bring it down. The creature eventually realised it was bested, and so took to the skies, but not before I grabbed its tail and clambered onto its hind leg. Hurtling through the skies and hanging on for dear life, I began a new adventure. An adventure with no questlog entry or objective. I just let this massive half-eagle, half-lion decide my fate.
I am sorry.
Many RPGs carry the sense of being crafted for you. Every quest is bespoke for your protagonist. Dragons Dogma 2 feels much more organic. The world lives and breathes of its own accord, and every time you step outside your front door, you're at the mercy of the overlapping systems that give its creatures life and make its rivers flow. I should mention here that Dragons Dogma 2's rivers can literally eat you. It means that every journey is an anecdote delivery machine. You can't go from A to B without some kind of wild and wonderful event leaping out at you. I recall my time in Skyrim in exactly the same way. Permanent images of being chased by frost trolls and stumbling across giants herding mammoths, none of which were part of any actual quest. Many of us remember Bethesda's shtick of saying, "See that mountain? You can go there." But it wasn't actually the mountain that was important, it was the journey there. The many unscripted, organic moments that happened on your particular journey are what makes Skyrim special, as they made it your experience, not everybody else's. Dragons Dogma 2 is an entire game cut from this same cloth. This kind of approach comes with its own drawbacks though. Creating a land this big, where the fun is often whatever happens to you rather than pre-scripted events, means there has to be a dozen systems constantly ticking behind the scenes to keep the world alive. More moving parts means more jank, and if there's anything a Skyrim fan knows well, it's jank. Dragons Dogma 2 is exactly the same. Its NPCs repeat ever-looping dialogue. Your companions are over-eager and constantly get in trouble. Characters stare dead-eyed into the wrong direction for entire conversations. Combat feels messy and imprecise. It's a list of things that would traditionally see a game written off. But rather than diminishing its quality, these rough edges feel oddly comforting because they lend the game personality, a personality reminiscent of Skyrim. There's something endearing about all this distinctly video gamey artifice, and how it finds a way to sit in harmony alongside a world that so often feels truly alive. Perhaps that feeling is rooted in nostalgia. We're in a golden age of RPGs, but few games try to capture the very specific magic of Skyrim. We've been waiting 13 years for something that comes close, and it could be that we're waiting forever if we pin our hopes on Bethesda. In the years since Skyrim's launch, the studio's games have increasingly been inspired by the survival genre rather than advancements in the RPG space. Fallout 4's crafting and building focus was a clear response to Minecraft's colossal success, while Fallout 76 attempted to ride the wave of Steam's survival game boom. More recently, Starfield's procedurally generated galaxy is inescapably in No Man's Sky's orbit. It stands to reason then that the Elder Scrolls 6 could push further in this direction, potentially at the expense of what made us fall in love with Oblivion and Skyrim. Dragons Dogma 2 though, with its map absent of icon clutter and reliance on curiosity, discovery and emergent gameplay, feels akin to a Bethesda game that took inspiration from Breath of the Wild and Elden Ring. These are touchstones that are hard not to get excited about. I appreciate Bethesda is what it is precisely because it doesn't make RPGs like anyone else, but I'd like to see it push focus on its open worlds rather than its survival elements. Thankfully, that's what I'm getting from Dragons Dogma 2.
Welcome, Arisen. We pawns have long awaited your arrival.
Capcom's latest is different from Skyrim in many ways. Its lore is a pamphlet in comparison. Its quest design is only half as good, and you definitely can't play as a stealth archer. It's much more challenging than an Elder Scrolls game too, with long and often arduous journeys that must be sufficiently planned for. Messing up can mean reverting to an hours-old save. And so Dragons Dogma 2 is not a spiritual sequel to Skyrim in the way that Obsidian's Avowed is positioned to be. But Skyrim's true magic was never what it was, but how it made you feel. And for the first time in 13 years, I finally had that same feeling again. The world of Dragons Dogma 2 has the spirit of Skyrim flowing through it. It feels like a home away from home, although only if you think home should be full of 20 feet tall monsters that surprise attack you in the middle of the night. For more on Dragons Dogma 2, check out our review, as well as our video detailing how long it took us to complete it. And for everything else, stick with IGN.